volume. Om Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankaracharya-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam. Om. So namaste, and we will start. I'll share my screen. Would someone like to read?
Yeah, I can read this one.
Sure. One second, I'll tell you everyone. I believe we were here. Brahma Vidya, knowledge of what is. Wait, hold on 1 second. It's here. I'm sorry. Understanding the Gita from here.
Prashant, can you make it a little bigger?
Huh.
Yeah, that's it. Understanding the Gita. To know what the Gita says requires inquiry, vichara. In the introduction to his commentary on the Gita, Shankara says, Sadidam Gita Shastram Samasta Vedartha Sara Sangraha Bhutam uh, Durvijnayartham. The sense of the Gita Shastra, which is in the form of the essence of the meaning of all the words of the Vedas, is difficult to grasp. तदर्थ आविष्करणाय अनेकैः विवृतपदपदार्थवाक्यार्थन्यायम् अपि अत्यन्तविरुद्ध अनेकार्थत्वेन लौ लौकिकैः गृह्यमाणम् उपलभ्य अहं विवेकतः अर्थनि अर्थनिर्धारणार्थ संक्षेपतः विवरणं करिष्यामि. By, by many commentators, in any effort to clearly expound its meaning, this has been expounded in the form of treatises that deal with the words of this text, the meanings of the words, the meanings of the sentences, the logic involved, etc. Seeing that they are fraught with vagueness and contradictions, in order to ascertain the correct meaning with due discrimination, I am writing this brief commentary. The essence of any knowledge is sometimes expressed too cryptically to be understood. Because the Gita is the essence, one naturally has to know the entire Shastra to fully appreciate what the Gita is saying. Even though Arjuna had a certain background, it was not easy for him to understand. He had to ask questions. If it was not easy for Arjuna, it is definitely not going to be easy for someone in our own time who does not have the same background, being so far being so far removed from both Arjuna and the Vedas. For such a person, the Gita will be as difficult to understand as any other text of Vedanta. The knowledge of oneself is in the form of words, but since the subject matter is something very unique, the knowledge is not easily accessible through words. At the same time, words are employed to reveal the self immediately. Therefore, one requires not only the teaching Vedanta as a pramana, but also a teacher, a guru.
Okay. So, any questions here? Look, it is more or less what we've emphasized so far. So nothing should sound very novel. Okay, so no questions. We can move to the next part. Okay, Shrikantji, if you'd like to read.
The need for a teacher. There are two letters in the word guru. Gu meaning darkness or ignorance, and ru meaning the one who removes it. Thus, a guru is one who removes darkness of ignorance by teaching the Shastra. The teaching is the Shastra, and the teacher is also the Shastra. As a teacher, then, I do not use the Shastra, rather, what I teach is Shastra. What does this mean? The teaching itself comes to life when it is handled in a certain way. Otherwise, all you have are so many dead words. Even though the teaching is a pramana, there is a methodology employed for unfolding the words. A teacher, a guru, is one who is able to unfold the meaning of these words. The words are already there and their meanings are already there. They need only to be unfolded for your comprehension, just as an artist unfolds his vision on the canvas.
Any questions here? It's very critical to understand the last piece. So see what it's saying over here. It says the words are there, the meaning is already there. It's already present. This is why, like, we have been emphasizing so many times that this Gita is not some philosophy. Because if it's a philosophy, then it's my idea. It's your idea. It's somebody's idea. It's somebody who's very imaginative, very creative, who's putting forth their ideas to the world to be tested, to be debated, and so on. That is not what we are here to do. It's a waste of time because ideas are a dime a dozen. There are 8 billion people in the world. There are 8 billion different interpretations that one can come up with. Nothing unique. But what the Gita is teaching, or what Shastra more generically, what the Shastra teaches, what the Vedas teach, what the Upanishads teach, what all of these granthas teach, is the truth that is already out there. And when I say out there, it means that it is an objective fact that is present, that is ingrained in the very blueprint of the cosmos. It's present as a reality. It is a truth. It is as true as looking up and seeing the blue sky and perceiving the color blue. It is there. It just needs to be unfolded. One needs to put on the glasses to be able to see correctly. One needs to be able to have somebody who handles the shastra for us to be able to see the shastra correctly. That's all it is. The guru is able to teach us what is already there, what is true. Because if it is true, it implies it has a reality. If it is not true, then it is a theory. It is a theory which can be tested, which can be experimented upon, all of those things. We're not here to do that. So that is what it says, that the meanings are already there. In fact, even when we talk about the rishis, we don't say that they are the mantra kartas. They are the mantra drashtas. Karta means the ones who would have written or authored. They didn't author the mantras. They saw the mantras. Therefore, the rishis are the mantra drashtas. The guru is also not somebody who comes up with their unique slant on the teachings that, oh, this is how I understand it. No, no, no. The understanding of the guru is the sampradayic understanding. It is the understanding that has flown and been passed down through the parampara since, well, since forever. Since there's no beginning to it, because this vidya did not even come into I guess come into fruition at the start of this cosmic cycle. That is not there. This vidya has always been there. The cycles come and the cycles go, and the knowledge of the Vedas also come along with the kalpas, and then they also become unmanifest and they become manifest again. So the knowledge is ever present. It has its own continuity. There are different types of how shall you say, there's a word called nitya. In the context of the Atma, we say it is nitya in the sense that it is not eternal. That word nitya should not be translated as eternal, because eternal implies something is still flowing through time eternally, right? Or one may say, oh, Atma is there since the beginning, but then suppose we say Atma is there since the beginning, also is a problem, because that is again bounded by the infinities of time. So it's kind of like co-eval, or in parallel with time. We don't look at it that way also. Atma is the truth of time. It is the content of time. It is the content of space. It is the content of all material and whatever else one can think of. It is the content of everything. It is the sat of everything, and everything else is mithya. So one can't even use words like eternal and other things for Atma. But then the word Nitya also has a mithya sense to it. One can also one can say that, okay, what is nitya? It's relative. From a mithya sense, nitya is a relative word. For instance, suppose I wake up tomorrow. One may have a job, one may not have a job. You can't say the job is permanent, but one still has a sense of security about the house that they live. That okay, I'll I'll be gone, my children will inherit it. Okay, the house is a standing structure which may stay for a number of years. But then that nitya is not really nitya because it is still confined in time, right? Obviously. Then another nitya would be that, okay, taking the planet for granted, that the earth will be there. But no, we know that after another, what, 4.5 to 5 billion years, the sun is going to start expanding once it turns into a red giant. Yes, essentially what happens is the hydrogen content gets used up, and now it starts compressing. The helium starts fusing. It grows larger, 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 and it swallows, I think, the inner rocky planets up to Mars. So all of these planets, it'll be a Mahayagna. The planets themselves get offered into this Agni of sorts. So even the earth is not permanent. Okay, then what about the universe? You can speak in that sense also. But then even the universe is not permanent. The whole cosmos itself comes and goes. So this word nitya is a very relative word, because nitya relative to what? One can say the Himalayas are permanent because we have so many stories, so many Puranic stories related to the Himalayas. But then we know that the Himalayas were also, they came into being when this Bharatvarsha came crashing into the Asian continent, and the colliding plates, the tectonic collision, gave rise to these majestic mountains. So again, it's like, what is Nitya? So then when we talk about the Vedas being Nitya, it is not the same Nitya as we speak about the Atma. The Atma is Nitya in the sense that it is the content of everything. Therefore, what word can you use for it? You can't use the word eternal, but you can say it is the truth of everything, and therefore it doesn't change. It doesn't change not because it flows in parallel with time, but it doesn't change because it is the very truth of time. But when we say the Vedas are Nitya, the Vedas, which is the knowledge of the Vedas, which is the knowledge contained within the mantras, are eternal. And because the knowledge of the Vedas are eternal in the sense that they are present in every kalpa. One universal cycle comes, another goes, one comes, another goes, and this whole chakkar keeps repeating. But the Vedas are there throughout, and the Vedas flow in parallel with Kala, and therefore the Vedas flow with time. And that which flows with respect to time and doesn't undergo change is what you call eternal. See, this is a very nice way to look at it. No, usually when you talk about, you take subject in mathematics, like take calculus or something. When you speak about derivatives, derivatives is a slope, like it's a tangent to a certain whatever object, and then you have like second level differential equations and such. But if you have something which is just flat relative to a given axis, then it is, you can't do much about it. But when you have a derivative, what you're saying is you're taking the slope, x over y, whatever. So here what I'm saying is the rate of change of something is always with respect to time. What is the rate of change of time? You can't do anything. So that is another form of eternal, that one can say samay is also nitya, because samay cannot be mapped with respect to itself. So it is nitya with respect to itself, because it's like, how can I gauge the length of a ruler? I need another ruler. Doesn't make sense. So anyway, just some aside, that there are multiple ways to understand nitya, but the nitya of the Atma is the actual nitya that we are concerned with. But even the Vedas are nitya in their own way.
Is it,
Um,
Prashantji, I have a
hmm?
question. So, from this paragraph, in order for the knowledge of the Shastras to be a pramana, or the teaching of the Shastras to be a pramana, one needs that knowledge to be unfolded carefully, and that's the role of the teacher. But it says teacher is also the Shastra. Um, is that kind of superimposing the role of the teacher as onto the knowledge itself, or what is the
Hmm.
um, deeper meaning of that? Without the teacher, does Shastra remain a pramana, I guess, is my question.
Very good question. And so one can potentially misinterpret this statement, right? Without the right context, which is, okay, if the Shastra itself is the teacher, or the teachers of the Shastra, if we are treating them as equivalent, then one can do away with the other. Because if they are both the same, then why do you need two? Why can't we just stick to one? But here, what the I guess this is like a gaunartha. What it's trying to imply is that the the teacher is not teaching anything that is away or distinct or different from what the Shastra teaches. So that the teacher is the Shastra that is coming alive in the form of this Guru. Because without that coming alive part, the Shastras would not be intelligible at all. It would be inaccessible, it would be unintelligible, it would not serve as a pramana, because the pramana has to be operated upon correctly. And so the teacher becomes the living, walking manifestation of the Veda Shastra. And therefore the Shastra is the teacher is the Shastra, because in that moment when the Guru is teaching, it becomes impossible to distinguish whether these are the words of the Guru or the words of the Shastra, because they are one and the same. The words of the Guru will never be outside of the words of the Shastra. In fact, if anything, they may add some more contextualization around what the Shastra is teaching, but they will never run in a direction opposite to the Shastra. So that is the beauty of it.
And one is not to be thought of as in lieu of the other. They are the same.
They are the same and they only work together.
Okay.
They never work on their own, because suppose you have a teacher minus the Shastra, then the person is not a Guru. Suppose you have the Shastra without the Guru, then the Shastra is not a Pramana. So the Pramana is only Guru Mukhena Shastra. Only when taught through, because the Guru makes one see. That seeing happens when the Guru handles the words appropriately. Otherwise, you just think about this simple thing. I don't know, so through some collective prarabdha karma, the most popular interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita is this ISKCON version, as it is. So whenever we are at this traffic signal or something, like or you're at an airport or you're at a railway station, wherever you're in a hotel, these people will show up, and they'll try to proselytize you, and they'll be like, "Oh, have you read the Gita as it is?" Right? Now, just imagine, in spite of Krishna Bhagavan having nichodified the teachings of the Upanishads in the form of the 700 shlokas of the Gita, even Krishna Bhagavan's words, which are supposed to be relatively clear, are misinterpreted by so many people. What to speak of someone like us who doesn't, who like people like us who don't really have the full background of the sampradaya. How will we access this teaching? And so, there's just this funny story. It's like when I got newly married, a lot of our friends were like, "Oh yeah, Prashant is into all of these things. I think he's impressed with Gita." So then they would try to give me copies of this Bhagavad Gita as it is. At some point, I said, "Stop, please, please. I follow my guru, and sometimes I just sort of mouth off about how." Anyway, it's I hope nobody makes that purchase, because it's a very sad book. It doesn't represent the Gita teachings well whatsoever. You know what these Dvaitins do? It's a sleight of hand, really. They're messing around with Vyakaran, and they are trying to manipulate grammatical rules to sell this agenda that somehow you, Ishvara, and Jagat are different. There's this mantra from the Upanishads. I am Atma Tattvamasi. And so then they play around with Sandhi rules or something, and then they say Atma Atatvamasi, because they split it that way. ठीक है, chalo, believe that, whoever wants to believe it, that I am not that. And then Punya Swamiji jokes that, just imagine you're born ignorant. You spend your whole life, your whole childhood, your whole college life, your whole professional life, thinking that, oh, I'm different from the world, I'm different from Ishvara, I'm different from the Jagat, I'm different from everything. Now suddenly you go into a Gurukulam, and in that Gurukulam, the same teaching is reinforced, that you are different from Bhagavan, you're different from Jagat. Why do you need to study that? You're already born with that ignorance. And now you just want to reinforce it further. What's the point? One only goes to a guru to learn things which are not obvious. Why do I need to go to a guru to learn that I am different from Bhagavan, I am different from the Jagat? There's no point. I'm different from everybody else. They talk about the Pancha Bhedas, no? Jiva and Jiva are different. No, one Atma different from second Atma. Atma different from Jagat. Atma different from Ishvara. Ishvara different from Jagat. And Jagat different from Atma. Anyway, I'm missing one, but They spend so much time delineating these differences, when frankly, every single thing that we have learned through our childhood, if there's one fact that we know, is that I'm not calling Vedanta theory. Okay, I'm just giving you an example. If there's one thing that we've learned in science also, is that the scientist who is able to actually unify disparate theories together is considered a superior scientist. Not people who individuate and who separate the realms of the cosmos into very distinct subject matters. No, matter, energy, equivalence. Einstein. We celebrate Einstein. Space, time, equivalence. We celebrate Einstein. We celebrate Einstein for that, for sure. Because in some sense, this was a great vision. No, because we don't say that. Yes, this is not a Veda Vakya, but at least it is some sort of an objective truth into a partial view of reality. It is very liberating to think about that from a scientific standpoint also. Not for us. We have to not get stuck in that rut. But when one is asking a question, who am I? And one is actually doing a serious inquiry. There are so many different Upanishads where they talk about it, that okay, you get stuck at the body level. That, oh, I am the body, and then you'll start justifying things from that level. Then you'll be like, okay, as you ask further questions, you'll say, no, 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 I'm not the body, I'm the prana. I'm not the prana, I'm the manaha. I'm not the manaha, I'm the buddhi. Finally, you'll say, okay, I'm the ankara. But then that also you have to ultimately dismiss. And you have to get to the truth. This truth you cannot arrive at. See, the I'll combine these disparate thoughts together. I'm not Joe Biden, I promise you. um, I hope people had a hint of yesterday's debate. What happened? It was a complete road accident, elderly abuse. Anyway, um, what happens here is, suppose I ask myself, who am I? Let's take the Ramana method. Though I don't think he proposed it. I think his students who came afterwards, they sort of created some khichdi, and they thought that, okay, sitting in one place asking, who am I? Okay, if you are a very sharp-witted person, it is not difficult to dismiss the fact that I am the body. That's not tough. Very easy to do. If one is sharper, it is not so difficult to dismiss the fact that I am not the prana. I am not the manaha. A little tougher, but then there one has to objectify the vrittis and other things. So okay, take even that is possible just through logic and through some analysis. You can also dismiss the fact that I am the buddhi. I don't think one can easily dismiss that one is the Ahankara, because that requires a little bit of an extra leap, because then we get into this whole deep sleep territory and other things, and that I would say requires Shastra Vakya at that level. But to take that additional leap that I am also not the Ahankara, then what happens is, suppose one does that, as let's assume that the Shunyavadins did, then what you end up in is nihilistic territory, non-existence. They say, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. I am not any of these things. Therefore, who am I? Oh, I don't exist. Shunya. No, zero, nothing. That theory is a zero. I'll tell you. It's because then ultimately we are saying that there is a world that is perceptible to us. There is a world where we are having this wonderful, nice conversation. There's a world where the Bhagavad Gita was taught by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. There is a world where these things were done. And you're saying that the truth of all of it is non-existence. How can existence rest upon non-existence? It's like saying, second floor is there without the first floor. Doesn't make sense. So then, as one inquires, one has to see that to get to the Atma, to understand what the Atma is, one has no choice but to rely upon the Guru and the Shastra, of course, but the Guru who's teaching the Shastra. Because if you see this whole Neti Neti approach, Neti Neti is only the starting point. It is to get one to an objective place where one is at least clear that no, these individual things by themselves I am not. But ultimately, one has to do that integration part again, which is Puja. And Puja Swamiji says this, he clears it for a lot of people, they have this problem. He says that after you negate all of these things, that is going to lead to dissociation. In psychology, there's a term called dissociation. This I have seen this happen to Vedanta people quite often, by the way. Where they get into this whole neti neti business, but then they start dissociating from the world, and not in a very healthy manner, because then they start seeing that okay, all of these things around us are useless. They don't participate in social activities. They don't participate in the political process. None of these things. I'm not saying one has to obsess over those matters, but what I'm saying is that as a member of society, today, even Krishna Bhagavan reinforced Arjuna's duties to him. That, hey, Arjuna, you're not some ordinary dude, who's wandering about. You're a Kshatriya, Yuvaraja. You're supposed to, you know, do your due diligence as a Kshatriya, towards your Swadharma. You're supposed to undergo, well, or rather, you have undergone an entire childhood where you have been taught to hone your skills, your weaponry, your skills as a leader, your courage, all of these things you were taught, and you have to put them to use because that is your Swadharma. And then, so what happens with dissociation is we start disidentifying with the world around us, we start disidentifying with our bodies. And then somewhere we are creating this whole psychological build-up. Okay. It's a very painful build-up. It's like a pressure cooker. But one keeps dismissing that, yeah, no, no, these desires mithya. Oh, Bhagavan mithya. So they'll not even worship Bhagavan because even Bhagavan is mithya. Name and form, na? Nama Rupa. Is there a person called Vishnu somewhere? No, Mithya. Oh, is there a place called Golok? Mithya. You turn everything into Mithya, but ultimately what happens? Ultimately, what happens is as one reaches a certain point, they'll lose it because they'll break under the pressure. And typically, I've seen this happen to a lot of people. They become somehow Ishvara has designed our life in such a way that a lot of crises that we go through happen during middle age. A lot of crises, and I think there's a very good reason for that. It's not that Ishwar is a tyrant who who's like, oh, let's make people crack around this 40 to 60 region. That is the age when we are dealing with a lot of responsibilities. We have children who are going to school or college. We have parents now who are dealing with serious health issues. At that age, if a person is lucky enough to have parents at that age, they are going through some issues. And so, once one hits like 35, 40 onwards, then this whole pressure starts building up. And if one has not integrated oneself well in this world and taken stock of their duties and their respective roles in society and perform these roles in an appropriate manner. This is what you call karma kaushalam, right? To do it appropriately, not skillfully, but appropriately. And appropriate also involves skill, that you put yourself to good use. If one has not done that, and if one makes the leap from artha kama all the way to moksha, but the whole dharma layer is bypassed, so it is satyanash, finished. There's no way to recover from that. It's a life that's wasted. So oftentimes I've told people also, okay, study Vedanta, but do not, forego your dharmic obligations, because those are obligations. And at some point, you will develop a certain vairagya, a true vairagya, and not a make-believe vairagya, where those obligations will also fall away. And that is what has happened to so many of our great Mahatmas, teachers, no? So, Swamiji Ji, Pujya Swamiji, all of these people. They lived a very dharmic life. But at some point, the the Vivekaha is so overpowering and so strong that you have no choice but to, you know, things leave by themselves. You don't have to leave them behind. And this is very important. In fact, I was having this conversation with one of you all recently about Vairagya. Vairagya is not something that one has to work towards. If one has to work to cultivate Vairagya, it's going to be very short lived and it's going to be devastating after a period of time. Yes, small minor things one can use some quick, I guess heuristics to let go. Small minor things. But those things which we find we keep snapping back into a certain pattern, and we keep snapping back, some form of addiction. One can't fake it to make it over there and go cold turkey entirely. But the only way Vairagya can be attained and sustained in a manner that stays is through Viveka. Vairagya has to be Vivekajanya. It cannot be forced upon. It's not mind control. It is rather based on a strong value I have for something that I'm trying to cultivate, which automatically prevents me from doing the opposite of it. Suppose a person is just to give an example. I'm not pinpointing, but I'm like, suppose a person has a certain predilection to eat meat. One cannot force oneself not to eat meat. कि, oh, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to eat, this is bad, oh, because, I heard somewhere, somebody in satsang said this, my guru said this, some guy who was conducting a Gita class said this, therefore I should not eat meat. That is not the right way to do it. Because it may work for a day, it may work for 5 days, but afterwards, poop, gone. The bubble, Vairagya bubble pops. But the way one has to cultivate the right value here is a love for animals, a love for life around us, a love for our fellow creatures, a responsibility that, okay, I am placed on this earth to do a certain duty. I have to take care of my fellow living beings. I have to protect the planet. I'm a protector. I'm a nourisher. I'm a nurturer. All of these things, and therefore all of these beings are my friends. And once one has cultivated that Maitriya Bhava, which is that I guess sense of compassion and an emotion of um, friendliness towards all living beings, then that friendship that one has developed with all of life will prevent one from putting a morsel of meat in one's mouth. So therefore, one sees that the value that one cultivates for the right things, which are in fact values, because you can't cultivate a value for the wrong things, otherwise it's not a value. Those are I don't know Sanskrit word, but let's say you have Daivi Sampatti and you have Asura Sampatti. What we are trying to cultivate are the Daivi Sampatti, which are the values that we actually call values. And if one cultivates the opposite of that, then one feels very overpowered. So Pujya Swamiji was not just a teacher par excellence, but he was also psychologist par excellence. Because frankly, a good teacher needs to understand the human psyche well. One can't just be a scholar and quote something from here and quote something from there without understanding the student's mindset, without understanding what are some of the students' um, pain points, what are some of their areas of insecurity, and so on. So the guru has to have this sense, and the guru has to, of course, know one's own mind, but also know the minds of the students. And that's why this personal relationship is so important, because not only is the guru thorough thoroughbred when it comes to this sampradaya and this complete thorough understanding of what the shastras convey, but the guru also has a very clear understanding of the pitfalls of a student, because they have been through that process. It's kind of like this has me kabhi bahut times, right? Like the guru was also a student. Guru bhi kabhi student tha. And the guru knows what are some of the obstacles that the student faces, and the guru will ensure that they do everything within their power to prevent their own shishyas from committing the same mistakes, or sometimes out of compassion they may allow the shishya to commit the same mistake so that the mistake becomes evident, and they'll be like, see, this is why this thing should not be done for so and so reason. So anyway, coming back to this whole thing, uh, asking who am I is not going to get one to the Atma. It will get one to Sunya. The Vedas, Aham Nirvikalpo Nirabhava Rupo Vibhurvyapta Sarvatra Sarvendriyanam Sadame Samatvam the Muktena Maya Chidananda Rupa Shivom Shivom. You see, Shankaracharya ji doesn't leave it at the Tejo, na Vayo, na this, na that, no the. He doesn't leave you with that. He ends it, he caps it up with a very beautiful sixth shloka of the Atma Shatakam, which is, this is who you are. Negate kiya, theek hai, but this is who you are. So same way when it comes to Vairagya and Viveka, one should not, I'm correlating these two things. When we talk about Atma and Anatma, I'm also talking about Vairagya and the things that one cultivates a value for. One should not be in a rush to give things up without understanding very clearly why those things need to be given up. One has to be patient with oneself. One has to be kind to oneself. One has to be generous with the time that one gives oneself to cultivate the right sort of values. Because when those values are cultivated, then the things that we try to give up automatically fall away. That is the beauty of it. A diabetic will like the taste of cake and cookies and all the unhealthy things in the world which are loaded with sugar. But the diabetic person also has a value for their own health and their own body. And they know that if I put this in my mouth, I'm going to regret it tomorrow. Same way, a person with a chronic, heart ailment knows that, okay, this, jalebi, pakoda with all of these calories and this, polysaturated fat is very yummy. But I know that one day, as I get older, I'm going to regret it. And so therefore the person will desist from consuming certain food items which are not healthy. Just giving an example over here. Same way, one may have a certain habit that they know that if I keep giving in to this habit, it's going to take away my growth as a sadhaka, and therefore one's value for oneself as a sadhaka overpowers the addiction or whatever it is that one has, that one is trying to give up, and then the giving up happens automatically. So I would love for, we all have our own vices in life, right? I don't think anybody here doesn't. Something or the other must be there. Something to must be there, I'm sure. And so try to work on it in this manner. Give it a week, give it 2 weeks. Just try to think through that. Okay, why do I find myself caving in to XYZ thing? Why do I find myself repeating a certain pattern? Why do I find it? And it could be some pattern like, me getting triggered by a family member also. That's also a pattern. That the fact that I get triggered is also a problem. Okay, let's understand why. And then slowly, as one inquires and as one cultivates value for this Devi Sampati, those things will fall away. Okay, so I think this covers quite a bit. Any other questions? See, it's a good thing I stopped talking about Biden. Otherwise, some Democrats would unsubscribe to this channel. But eh, it raises a very pertinent point, right? I'm not. Okay, I'll be very clear. I think he's not running the country because he can barely walk. What to speak of run? But anyway, um, uh, in our tradition, we are supposed to, after a certain age, let go of things. Once our Shastra also says that once you've reached the age when you have your first grandchild, fall back now. Fall back from social obligations. Fall back from your job. Fall back from your duties. Start wrapping things up. Like, when we are at work and it's like 4:45, like, suppose I have a team member, I'll tell the person, okay, start wrapping up now. You prepare to go home. Don't work too hard. Go home. And that's what we need to do after reaching a certain age. Our ambition is misplaced. The goal of human life is to free oneself from the sense of inadequacy, as we've read in Vedanta, in Introduction to Vedanta recently. To free oneself from a sense of inadequacy through the pursuit of self knowledge. When one feels inadequate, they will feel that there is a lot that I need to accomplish. The night is still young, the day is so long, there are so many miles I need to walk before I reach my destination. This mindset. So one has to be very vigilant about workaholism also. That okay, once you have reached a certain stage in life, you've played your role. After that, get off the stage. Nobody wants to see a person hanging about, standing on stage looking like a confused old senile person. And this applies to us also. I'm saying this metaphorically as well as literally. Literally in the case of Biden, and metaphorically in the case of our own lives, that we are all going to get old one day. And at that age, hopefully, we are all so committed to the teachings of Vedanta that we have fully, completely, 100% internalized this teaching. And we are there just reveling in our own Swarupa at that age. That's what we should aspire for. Yeah. Questions, thoughts before we proceed?
Prashantji, this is Jyoti. See,
Mhm.
when you spoke about Vairagya and sort of renouncing disassociation, right? That's the word you use. So I have heard this comment that Sri Ramana Maharshi made during the independence struggle of India. He was approached and to help, rally people and other things to get involved basically.
Mhm.
And he commented saying, what is the point in doing, I mean, what is the point in getting involved? It is like throwing water on in a fire scene on the screen. So I, for a long time, I've not been able to come to terms with that. How, a person as influential as him could have also helped. My initial thoughts were that he could have also helped in that entire movement, but he withdrew. What could be the reason? I've tried. attempting on my own, reading what commentaries have been there about that incident, but I still haven't been able to resolve. Do you have a point of view?
Sure. So let me stop presenting the screen and let's discuss this in more detail. So, um, excuse me. So when we talk about a jnani, they come in many different flavors. Once a person has attained jnana, and here let us presume, because it is a fair presumption, it's not an unfair presumption, that Ramana Maharshi ji may have very well been a jnani. It's a fair presumption that he was a Jivan Mukta. Now, not every Jivan Mukta looks and sounds the same, and they don't walk the same, they don't talk the same. As in the Gita, Arjuna is also inquiring, what is it? Sita Pragnasya Kim Bhasha, something like that, right? How does he walk? How does he talk? How does he speak? How does he look? What does he do? How does he sleep? How does he eat? Does he hang out with people? Basically, that's what Arjuna is asking. That compared to all of us, what is different about this Jivan Mukta? And so Bhagavan Krishna says it is not in his walking, talking, eating, sleeping, that you can differentiate the Jivan Mukta. It is really the vision that has been cultivated. Now, some Jivan Muktas, everybody is born with a prarabdha karma. From Pujya Swamiji to Raman Maharshi ji to ourselves, they are Jivan Muktas. We are work in progress. Okay, but at some point when the jnana has been gained, which is just another way to say that avidya has been removed, because knowledge is always there. Avidya is removed. That my nature, my luminous nature as the self, as the Swayam Jyoti, your nice name which you have, that is always, it's self-luminous. It doesn't require any other light to shine, because I am of the very nature of consciousness. That is my Jyoti Swarupa. So now, for this person who has cultivated this vision, who has attained this vision, what does that person have left to do in this world? Nothing. In this all the Trailokya, in all the three lokas, there's nothing left to accomplish, because there's nothing that the person needs to do to feel adequate. But now the question is, why would they still do something in spite of this adequacy? Such as Pujya Swamiji, we know that, after attaining Jnana Nishtha also, as a great Mahatma that he was, he did so much. Aim for Seva, then Dharma Samiti, this thing, the Hindu Jewish Summit, the Millennium Peace Summit, maintaining these Gurukulams, starting so many Gurukulams, training so many teachers, course curriculum, ye kiya, wo kiya. You can list like 50, 60 pages of his accomplishments, and that resume will only not end. It's a, it's the best CV that one can have. And this person, this Mahatma, has done so much. And still the person continued to do things. Why? Because sometimes there is a certain prarabdha that needs to be lived out. And every person's prarabdha is different. One person's prarabdha may involve a lot of interaction with the world. Another person's prarabdha may be a bit more summarized in a fewer number of years. They may be more packed in a fewer number of years. And then they may not stretch for too long. So, for instance, if you look at the Sringeri Jagadguru, the 34th Jagadguru of Sringeri, Sri Chandrasekhar Bharati ji, he was considered obviously a great Jivan Mukta himself. But he reached a certain stage. I'm talking about Sri Chandrasekhar Bharati ji. I think you got disconnected. So, the Jagadguru reached a certain stage in his life when he was so antarmukha, which is that reveling so deeply in one's Swarupa, which is not to say that the ones who were active weren't. But here, the physical markers started falling away. Dheere se, dheere se, dheere se. The physical markers that identify one as a living being of flesh and blood, those slowly started receding away, because the prarabdha started running out. So people had to bring food to his kutia. He would not, get up from one place. People would bring. Sometimes they would find him not even wearing clothes. All of these things, So people who are ignorant about this phenomena of a jnani, they may sometimes say that, something is wrong. And sometimes doctors would also come, and they found nothing wrong, because this prarabdha only started running out. At which point the body has no choice but to fall away. That's the last thing that's left, your breath. And when you give that up also, then the body is also gone now. So what happened now in the case of Pujya Samji, for instance? His purpose of birth may have been to establish all of these things. Somebody else's purpose may have been different. But all of them, when it comes to their own Swarupa, are knowers of the self. They are Jivan Muktas. So in that case, Ramana Maharshi ji may not have had that kind of a prarabdha that needed for him to be a very interactive person. He may have been more withdrawn, relatively speaking. Now, there's another thing also. This we typically don't want to get into too much, but I will just give you a preview because it is a fair question, and I know it will also address some other questions. I was listening to Swami Divyananda Puri ji, who was also one of my gurus, and he mentioned that this when you talk about jnana, there are sapta bhumikas. So, there's one point where the person is still able to teach, interact with the world, and so on. Now, this is a matter of choice and it's a matter of prarabdha both. Okay, so what I want to emphasize is that once jnana has taken place, the person is mukta, the person is free, there is nothing that can impede this person's freedom. Whether the person interacts with the world or whether the person goes back into that shell. But a person who has attained jnana has both a certain choice and then they also have a certain prarabdha which may either incline them towards contemplating and reveling only in the self, at which point the world around them starts as though fading away. How remember this is optional. It's not a recommendation. Some gurus may see if you look at our okay, I'll come back to that later. So what happens here is, imagine you have a radio tuner and you're trying to listen to a certain channel. Now, actually speaking, all the channels are available for us, but we tune into one channel at a time. This whole Shrishti, in some sense, they find it harder and harder and harder to tune into it. And at some point, the sound of the Shrishti, the light of the Shrishti, the form of the Shrishti, the connection with the Shrishti starts fading away and fading away and fading away and fading away. At which point the person becomes completely antarmukha. And this happens gradually. At some point, the person can't teach anymore. At a later stage, the person can't even interact with people anymore. There will be very few words coming out of their mouth, maybe yes and no or something like that. And even beyond that, the connection has snapped so much that the person is just there, and then the breathing also runs out, and then the body falls. Now, some people may choose to go there, such as the 34 Jagat Guru. They found that he had discarded his body in the river, in the what is the nadi over there? I forget the one that runs by Shingi, Tunga Nadi. So by the Tunga Nadi, he was found the next day by his attendants, and he didn't have any water in his lungs, but he was submerged, and he was sitting in yogasana. So that is one kind of Jivan Mukta. Another example again, I go back to Pujya Samaji, that he was a different kind of Jivan Mukta who either through the prarabdha or through a willful non-binding choice would have interacted with the world because there was a certain mission that needed to be done. But when Puja Samji's body falls or fell, and when the Shingeri Jagat Guru's body fell, they are both the same. They are nothing but the Atma, they are not coming back. So different Jivan Muktas will behave differently. That is not an indication of the jnana. And we don't emphasize this too much in the teaching because what I have seen as a very common theme in Vedanta students is, and I've been through that as well, that's why I know, we sometimes look for means to escape our responsibilities. And so sometimes a person may have a sense of being wistful that, yeah, if only I could become Antarmukha and I could, give up all these things. Sometimes it's coming from true Vairagya, which is a little rare, but more often than not, it is just coming from growing tired of the world around us. And that is why the emphasis here is not what to do after jnana, but the fact that one has to attain jnana. That is the emphasis. After that, Bhagwan takes care of the rest. Bhagwan leaves that, if you look at the rishis also, none of the rishis were antarmukha that much. They were all highly interactive. Whether you talk about Vishwamitra, you talk about Vashishta, you talk about what to say of Durvasa, especially, Giras and Agastya, all of these rishis. There are so many beautiful, beautiful tales in the Ramayana where they interacted with Bhagwan and Bhagwan received their blessings and so on. So, Haji, Balaji, ji, I think you're saying something. Okay, I'll mute you. Sorry. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so the emphasis here, I guess I'm just looking through the text. It seems that we've covered a lot of ground just speaking about a guru, about the importance of a guru role. So I'll not belabor that. We'll just see what Pujya Swamiji has to say. And yeah, what I would say is ultimately the goal of human life is only self-knowledge. Everything else is incidental. It's there's one story. Swami Swatmavidanji says a story which I like a lot. It took me a while to understand the import of it, but now I think I understand it. She says that somebody asked this question that if one is studying Vedanta, should one give everything else up? The question is very good. And this sort of ties into Jyotiji's question a little bit, which is that what is my duty? If I am giving up my duties because I want to study Vedanta, then I'm actually performing an act of adharma. And that will not bode well for me in my personal life, my social life, or my adhyatmic life. It will come back to me. One has a choice to do more than one's duty, in which case it is an option. So there are so many problems to solve in this world, right? I'm sure you have friends, you have relatives who need help. Some people need counseling. Some people need, somebody to just talk to. Some people need money. Some people need an education. If you have to really take an inventory of all the problems that are there in your immediate circle that you have to solve, I bet you can go for years and years trying to solve those problems. But those, one may choose to solve those. I'm not saying one shouldn't, but it's a choice. Whether it is fighting for the independence movement also, it's a choice at the end of the day. But it's nice to if one can. But if one is relinquishing the dharmic duties, which are part of one's swadharma, part of one's vishesha dharma, part of one's samanya dharma, then it's a problem. So to Swamiji's story, a student of Vedanta, suppose you create a metaphor where going to the airport is the same as attaining self-knowledge. Then along the way to the airport, one can either just take the bus or cab or Uber directly to the airport, or one can have multiple stopovers along the way to the airport. Suppose I'm going to the airport and my friend calls. And they're like, oh, by the way, where are you? I'm like, yeah, my flight's a little delayed. I have a couple of hours. So like, oh, do you want to meet at the restaurant on the way to the airport? Sure. Because it's not interfering with my intended goal. So then I meet, have a nice conversation. I move on. I share a few good things, right? Hopefully. Then afterwards, somebody else calls. They're like, "Oh, where are you going?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going here." "Oh, I am also catching your flight, but I'm going somewhere else. Do you want to meet in the food court at the airport?" "Sure, I have time before my security check-in." Then I do that. Then I'm in my security check-in line. And there's a nice dog behind me. This happened, no? So we were going on a conference recently, and Ambika was with me, and uh, there was a very cute dog behind us. A guy who was holding a little Dachshund doggy, very cute. And so Ambika was constantly just staring at the dog, and then finally the guy's like, "Oh, do you want to pet the dog?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." And then Ambika just kept petting the dog through the security line. So take it. Maybe pet a dog or pet a cat or have a conversation while you're on the security line. Doesn't slow you down. You're still walking. You're at the gate. You meet somebody that you knew from school. Have a conversation. None of these things are going to slow you down. But suppose you're going to the airport and somebody on the opposite side of town says, "Do you want to meet?" Say no. Say no, because then you're going in the opposite direction of your goal. That means one has to be very vigilant about the actions one performs. I either perform those actions which do not interfere with me getting to my goal, and they're incidental along the way so that I can also enrich a few people on this journey, or I can do those things which are a major source of distraction to me, which completely derail me from getting to the place that I want to go. And that is a choice that we have to make. And I think after several years of Vedanta study, for many of you all and myself included, we have to start putting our foot down about which choice equals what decision and what is the outcome of that choice. It's very important. So, having reflected on this decision personally, I have stepped back a lot from my social obligations. Sometimes people may consider myself misfit a little bit. That kya yaar, whole day, theek hai. People judge, people will judge you also, people will judge me also. But one has to see what actions I need to take in life to the point where it doesn't slow me down from attaining the goal, which is Brahma Vidya, Atma Vidya. So that is a very important recommendation that I would give, that just make an inventory of obligations that one has and truly, truly, authentically start striking away those things which get in the way. And in place of those, create new ones which don't get in the way. So that way you don't feel that life has become a vacuum. Fill it with other things which also take you towards the goal. This conversation we are having right now, it's a form of socialization in some sense. Not really, but you know what I'm saying. It's a satsanga. We are meeting as a group. But much rather meet with you all on a Friday night than go to the bar, which in the past I have done. And it doesn't, fulfill a lot of, it doesn't give you great benefit at the end of it. Because one can only look back at life and wonder that, been there, done that. Why do I keep doing it then? Anything that we've done a few times in life. At what point can I say, been there, done that? That is the vairagya that one has to cultivate, and that vairagya can only be cultivated by viveka. So I am very grateful to Bhagwan, to Puja Swamiji for one thing. That there are many things in life where I've said I've been there, done that. Now I don't want any more of it. But some people still have this. I have one person in our Vedanta circle who reached out to me, right? Now this individual has had a very traumatic childhood because parental neglect and not being paid attention to, this, that, and all. So this person is in their mid 50s and they are actually living out their college fantasies right now. So I also say one should not suppress, because suppression is a bad idea. This fake vairagya is a very bad idea. If you are inclined to do something, do it. But very quickly, once you do that thing, just ask yourself one honest question. Would I truly do this again if I had to impart wisdom to my younger self? And that younger self could even be 10 minutes ago. But just ask yourself that question. And if the answer is no, I'm not saying give it up. Just think about it. And as one thinks about it, one will develop a healthy distaste for certain things. I have a very healthy distaste for meat, which is that I have absolutely no taste for it. So it's not something that I have to cultivate. I have a very healthy distaste for certain environments that I don't want to be a part of. The clubbing culture, the bar culture, this culture, that culture. I have a very healthy distaste for certain kinds of music because I know that they are not enriching. You'd much rather listen to Bach and Beethoven and Mozart than listen to some, 2-bit rap music today, where all they're talking about is booties and money, right? So this is the kind of thing that one has to think about. That a little bit of distaste is a healthy thing, because see, as human beings, and again, I'm sort of not trying to go over 1 hour, but human beings have an inherent distaste for a lot of things. If you look at a young child, or newborn, forget young child, a newborn, they have no social conditioning because they've just been born. One can't say that they are conditioned. But if you see, girl infants have a preference for dolls and other similar toys. And boys have a preference for a different set of toys. Girls and boys both have a same preference for faces which have neotenous features, which is they look childlike or cute. Human beings also have a preference for cute features. That's why you will prefer to pet a Pomeranian than a wolf, right? Because a wolf is not cute. It looks a little dangerous because it has, a very glaring look. Whereas a puppy dog, has puppy dog eyes. So you want to pet a puppy dog. And that's why children also come out cute. They don't come out looking like ogres. They don't come out looking like us. Because imagine you have a child, a newborn child, with your face right now. You're going to run away. You're like, yeah, I see myself. I don't want to see this anymore. Scary. But a little child is so cute, and that compels us to take care of it, because that cuteness is in a very positive way. I'm saying that cuteness is a manipulation. It manipulates our maternal and paternal instincts so that we'll go and take care of it. You know why dogs are completely useless? Have you seen how useless dogs are? I love them, by the way. But when I say useless, dogs cannot survive in the wild. You put a Pomeranian or poodle in the wild, after a few days, it will be dead. If you ever see a dog that was domesticated that's left out on the streets, like with the dog tag and all, they'll die after a few days or weeks because they'll not know what to do. Cats will survive because they have that instinct. They know how to hunt and other things. They'll catch birds, they'll catch lizards. But dogs will not be able to do that. Then one wonders that how did the dog survive and the wolf also survive simultaneously, but the wolf can hunt, but the dog can't. The dog survived because its evolutionary trait of cuteness allowed it to live on human charity for thousands of years. That's why the dog survived. It's only been living on human charity. That, oh, bichara, Chintu, idhar aa. Here, take this. Here, take this food. You'll give it some food, it'll survive. And and what is its reward to you? Its reward is that it looks cute. And that's its reward. That it's cute, and whenever you give it food, it wags its tail and it makes you happy, so the dog survives. That is the dog's reward. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that there are certain traits that we are born with, inborn, cultivated. Some are cultivated, some are inborn. And these instincts, one can also develop a healthy taste and distaste for things also, without feeling guilty about it. So I'll stop at that. Otherwise, I'll get I'll get back to the whole debate yesterday. Okay, so I'll close off and Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, let me close the recording or stop it rather.